Today we're exploring the life and legacy of a designer who defined Hollywood's golden age glamour and forever changed the way we dress. Gilbert Adrian, often simply known as Adrian, may not be a household name today, but you've certainly seen his work. Think of Dorothy's sparkling ruby slippers in The Wizard of Oz, or the power-shouldered suits that became Joan Crawford's signature look. Those iconic styles didn't just magically appear, they were crafted by Adrian, the visionary costume designer behind over 200 classic films. In this episode, we'll uncover how Adrian went from a young art student to Hollywood's premier designer, how he blurred the line between costume and high fashion, and why his influence on style is still felt decades later. Get comfortable as we journey through the glamorous world of Adrian, a true fashion icon of the silver screen. Welcome to the Fashion Memoir. Let's celebrate fashion, one icon at a time. Look 1. The making of a Hollywood designer. Gilbert Adrian was born Adrian Adolph Greenberg in 1903 in a small town in Connecticut. Fashion was practically in his blood. His parents ran a millinery hat shop, sparking his fascination with design from an early age. As a teenager, he adopted the name Gilbert Adrian, a combination of his father's first name and his own, and set his sights on a creative career. He studied at the New York School for Fine and Applied Arts, now Parsons School of Design, and in 1922 he headed to Paris to refine his craft. Fate intervened when the legendary Broadway producer Irving Berlin noticed Adrian's talent. At just 19, Adrian was hired to design costumes and sets for Berlin's Music Box Revue on Broadway. This early break showed a glimpse of Adrian. By the mid-1920s, Hollywood beckoned. Silent film superstar Rudolph Valentino's wife, Natasha Rambova, invited Adrian to design for a Valentino film. That project fell through, but Adrian soon landed on his feet in the movie industry. In 1925, he got his first screen credit, and shortly after, famed director Cecil B. DeMille took notice of the young designer's talent. DeMille brought Adrian to his studio, and then, in 1928, to the mighty Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, when DeMille joined that studio. At just 24 years old, Adrian found himself at the heart of Hollywood's most glamorous studio. Within months, he was promoted to chief costume designer at MGM, a position he would hold for over a decade. It was a meteoric rise, and it set the stage for Adrian to revolutionize on-screen style during Hollywood's golden age. Look 2. Gowns by Adrian, Hollywood's golden age glamour. In the 1930s, MGM was known for films that oozed glamour and sophistication, and Gowns by Adrian became a familiar credit on many of them. As head designer, Adrian was responsible for crafting the wardrobes of the era's biggest stars, and he approached this with an artist's eye and a showman's flair. He personally sketched and supervised every costume in the films he worked on, sometimes creating 50 to 75 sketches a day to outfit an entire production. The results were breathtaking. He dressed screen legends like Greta Garbo, Norma Shearer, Katharine Hepburn, Jean Harlow, and Joan Crawford, shaping their signature looks and on-screen personas. In fact, producer Irving Thalberg once remarked that MGM's success was due in large part to two people, art director Cedric Gibbons and costume designer Gilbert Adrian. Adrian had become a secret weapon of Hollywood magic. What made Adrian's film costumes so special? For one, he understood the power of a strong silhouette. Rather than hide perceived flaws, he exaggerated them into high style. A famous example is Joan Crawford's broad shoulders. Early in Crawford's career, some executives fretted that her shoulders were too wide. Adrian had a different take. He accentuated them with stylish shoulder pads in films like Letty Linton, 1932, and The Women, 1939, creating a dramatic wide-shoulder silhouette. Audiences loved it, and soon women everywhere were embracing power shoulders. Adrian essentially kicked off the shoulder pad trend of the 1930s and 40s, turning Crawford's look into a nationwide fashion statement. Adrian was equally adept at setting trends with accessories. Take the Eugenie hat, a chic tilted hat he designed for Greta Garbo in the 1930 film Romance. That hat caused a sensation. Women flocked to milliners to copy Garbo's stylish headwear. Similarly, Adrian's use of slouchy berets, playful pillbox hats, and elegant veils in films often led to those items appearing on store shelves shortly after. He had an uncanny sense of what would captivate viewers and translate into real-world fashion. Some of Adrian's film costumes became outright legends. His most famous work is perhaps The Wizard of Oz, 1939, one of the crown jewels of MGM. Adrian was the mastermind behind the movie's fantastical wardrobe, everything from Judy Garland's blue gingham pinafore and ruby slippers to the Wicked Witch's iconic look was his creation. Designing for a film that transitioned from black and white to Technicolor, Adrian used vivid textiles and imaginative designs to make the Land of Oz unforgettable. The sparkling ruby slippers in particular have become an enduring symbol of cinematic magic and are often cited as one of the most iconic costume pieces in film history. That same year, 1939, Adrian's flair for spectacle was on display in The Women, a comedy famous for featuring an all-female cast. Although the movie itself was shot in black and white, it pauses midway for a lavish 10-minute fashion show sequence in full Technicolor, a showcase of Adrian's most extravagant designs. Audiences at the time were dazzled to suddenly see vibrant color on screen, admiring sumptuous Adrian gowns in rich blues, reds, and greens. It was as much a fashion show as a film scene, underlining that Adrian's name was a draw in its own right. His evening gown designs, bias-cut satin dresses, flowed. By the end of the 1930s, Adrian was arguably Hollywood's most celebrated costume designer. He had the clout to make bold choices. However, he also faced challenges. The onset of World War II brought budget cuts and material shortages, which frustrated his extravagant vision. And privately, Adrian contended with the Hollywood studio system's constraints, including having to keep a low profile about being gay in an era of moral scrutiny, which even led him to enter a so-called lavender marriage with actress Janet Gaynor to satisfy studio expectations. Professionally, the breaking point came during production of Two-Faced Woman, 1941, when Adrian clashed with MGM executives and director George Cukor over Greta Garbo's costumes. Feeling that his creative freedom was stifled and sensing that the golden age glamour was fading, Garbo herself was about to retire, Adrian made a dramatic decision. In 1941, at the height of his fame, he left MGM. As he put it, "When the glamour goes for Garbo, it goes for me as well." It was the end of an era, but for Adrian, a new chapter was about to begin, one that would change American fashion beyond the silver screen. Look 3, From Silver Screen to Main Street. Adrian's fashion revolution. Adrian's departure from Hollywood wasn't a retreat, it was a bold leap into the wider world of fashion design for the public. In the 1930s, he had already seen glimpses of how powerful film fashion could be in everyday life. Moviegoers didn't just want to watch their favorite stars, they wanted to dress like them. Department stores eagerly met this demand. In 1932, for example, Joan Crawford's white organdy dress with ruffled sleeves from Letty Linton caused a fashion frenzy. Macy's in New York swiftly reproduced that dress with MGM's blessing and sold tens of thousands of copies to enthusiastic women nationwide. Some sources even claim as many as 50,000 of the Letty Linton dresses flew off racks, an astonishing number for a high-fashion gown during the Depression. It became known as the Letty Linton dress, and its success proved that a movie costume could spark an overnight national trend. This was not an isolated case. Adrian's film-inspired designs were often adapted for retail. Seventh Avenue boutiques and department stores set up special cinema shops that sold clothing influenced by Hollywood costumes. Shrewdly capitalizing on Adrian's popularity, MGM even produced a short promotional film in 1940 titled Hollywood's Style Center of the World, declaring that Los Angeles, not Paris, now led global fashion. It may have sounded like studio hype, but there was truth to it. American women were looking to movie screens for style inspiration, and Adrian's work was front and center. Encouraged by this momentum, Adrian opened his own couture salon, Adrian Limited, in Beverly Hills in 1942. His timing was perfect. With World War II raging, Parisian couture was cut off from the world due to the Nazi occupation of France. The traditional fashion capitals in Europe went dark, unable to export new designs. Into that void stepped Adrian, now a homegrown American designer with instant name recognition and proven flair. As fashion historian Robert Riley later noted, During the war years, Adrian was one of the designers who effectively took the place of Paris for American fashion. In other words, he became a leading light of American fashion, legitimizing it at a time when even Americans used to look exclusively to Europe for chic styles. Adrian's new role as a fashion designer to everyday clients, not just film stars, showed how versatile and forward-thinking he was. He understood the practical needs of modern women, yet never lost his dramatic touch. His 1940s signature look became the definitive style of the decade: sharply tailored suits with square, padded shoulders narrowing to a slim waist and hips, a bold triangular silhouette. This was essentially the same empowering look he had created for Joan Crawford and Katharine Hepburn on screen, now translated into real-world wardrobes. Women working in factories or offices during World War II embraced Adrian's confident suits, which were fashionable but also had a no-nonsense strength about them. Fashion magazines like Vogue praised his suits for being innovative yet wearable, never melodramatic, never dull, as one review put it. Competing designers, scrambling to meet wartime fabric rationing, often imitated Adrian's ideas, like those broad shoulders and knee-length skirts, because they combined style with a bit of patriotic pragmatism. It's not an exaggeration to say Adrian influenced nearly every showroom and department store in America during the 1940s. From high-end boutiques to mass-market dress manufacturers, many were taking cues from his patterns and silhouettes. Crucially, Adrian's commitment to quality and creativity did not wane outside Hollywood. If anything, he doubled down on his artistic approach. He famously insisted on top-notch craftsmanship in his fashion house. Each custom suit, for instance, was made start to finish by a single tailor, a testament to couture methods rarely seen in American ready-to-wear at the time. Adrian also became fascinated by textiles and prints, partnering with innovative fabric designers to create truly unique garments. He collaborated with textile artist Paula Stout, who supplied him with bold, striped and checked wool fabrics. Adrian would play with these stripes through masterful cutting and seaming, a technique called mitering, matching patterns at angles, to produce jackets and skirts that were eye-catchingly graphic yet refined. He also sourced avant-garde prints, even one designed by the surrealist artist Salvador Dali, to incorporate fine art into fashion. This emphasis on textiles led Eleanor Lambert, a famous fashion publicist, to declare, "The fabric is the first signal that the costume is an Adrian." In other words, Adrian's designs could often be recognized by the distinctive materials and quality before you even noticed the cut. From sumptuous rayon crepes that draped beautifully, a favorite of his in the early 40s, to luxurious silks and even whimsical motifs like tiger stripes or trompe-l'oeil effects, Adrian treated fabric as a cornerstone of design. Adrian's post-MGM career was marked by success after success. His salon shows in Beverly Hills drew socialites, movie stars and buyers from top stores. He even staged shows in New York, 4 back-to-back sold-out showings in 1948 that attracted such crowds. Police had to control the scene. One of his early ready-to-wear hits was a simple black dress, cheekily named the Black Dress, which had been originally created for a film. When Adrian offered it in his collection, it sold in the thousands, proving that sometimes, as the 1940s progressed, styles began to shift. In 1947, Dior's new look from Paris, with its cinched waists and soft shoulders, tried to make the broad-shouldered wartime suit look obsolete. But Adrian was famously not a fan of the new look's corseted femininity. He stuck to his guns and his shoulder pads, lengthening hems a bit, but refusing to abandon the comfortable, strong silhouette he knew women still wanted. In a way, this resistance underscored Adrian's design philosophy. He believed fashion should move forward and be functional, not just follow arbitrary edicts. And indeed, many American women look for a lasting legacy. By the early 1950s, after a decade of running his own successful label, Adrian had cemented his legacy as both Hollywood's genius costumer and a leader in American fashion. However, years of relentless work took a toll on his health. In 1952, he suffered a serious heart attack. Because Adrian was the kind of perfectionist who handled every design personally, rarely delegating to assistants, running the business without him was untenable. Reluctantly, he closed Adrian Limited in 1952 and stepped back from the fashion world. Along with his wife Janet Gaynor, he left California to spend a quiet semi-retirement on a ranch in Brazil for a few years. It must have been a dramatic change of pace, from Hollywood soundstages and New York runways to life on a Brazilian fazenda, but even in relaxation, Adrian's creative spirit didn't fade. In 1958, the ever-restless Adrian made a brief comeback to his first love, costume design. He was invited to create the costumes for a new Broadway-bound musical called At the Grand, based on the film Grand Hotel. The stage-like film was an arena where Adrian's flair could shine, and it reignited his passion. The next year, he began working on the costumes for the big-budget Broadway musical Camelot. It was a prestigious project and would later become famous for its lavish look, and Adrian poured his talent into designing Arthurian costumes with his trademark mix of authenticity and creative twist. Sadly, this would be his final act. In September 1959, while still sketching and planning for Camelot, Adrian died of a heart attack at age 56. The theatre world mourned the loss of a visionary. In a touching tribute, Adrian was posthumously awarded the Tony Award for Best Costume Design for Camelot in 1961. It was a fitting recognition of his talent, spanning from Hollywood to Broadway, and in a bit of poetic justice, the Academy Awards later created a category for costume design, unfortunately coming a few years too late for Adrian to ever be an Oscar nominee, as his prime film work predated that category. Though he passed away relatively young, Gilbert Adrian's legacy has proven enduring. For one, his impact on fashion is still evident in the silhouettes and ideas that cycle back into style. The next time you see a retro 1940s-inspired jacket with padded shoulders on the runway, or a glamorous bias-cut satin gown in a magazine editorial, you're seeing echoes of Adrian's pioneering designs. He popularized the notion that costume design could influence real-world fashion trends, a concept now taken for granted in our era of movie-inspired fast fashion collaborations. He also set the template for the superstar costume designer, who is a celebrity in their own right, a path later followed by figures like Edith Head and modern designers who straddle film and fashion. Adrian's work has been preserved and celebrated in museum exhibits and retrospectives, underscoring his status as an artist. The museum at the Fashion Institute of Technology mounted an exhibition, Adrian, Hollywood and Beyond, highlighting his dual contributions to film and ready-to-wear. Original Adrian gowns and suits reside in the collections of institutions like the Met, the Smithsonian, which famously houses a pair of those ruby slippers, and costume museums around the world. Fashion historians often point out how Adrian championed American design during a critical period, giving the US its own sartorial identity separate from Europe. He showed that American glamour could rival Paris, and that a Hollywood costume wizard could also be a practical designer for the everyday woman. On a more personal level, Adrian's story inspires because it bridges creativity and innovation. He was an artist who didn't stay confined in one box. When Hollywood's constraints became too tight, he boldly reinvented himself in the wider fashion arena. Yet through it all, his vision remained consistent. He wanted to make people feel elegant, confident, and a bit dazzled, whether they were actresses on a movie set or customers in a department store. He had a keen understanding of the times he lived in, providing escapist glamour in the 1930s and timeless style that outlived him. As we reflect on Gilbert Adrian's legacy, we see a designer who truly left a lasting imprint on fashion history without ever needing the word indelible. From the silver screen to 7th Avenue, Adrian proved that fashion and film could inspire one another and captivate the public imagination. His name might not be as wide. The final look. In closing, Gilbert Adrian's journey illustrates how one visionary designer shaped an era. He transformed Hollywood costumes into high fashion, introduced trends that defined the 1930s, and solidified American style on the world stage. Whether designing for a movie star or the everyday woman, Adrian brought elegance, innovation, and a touch of bravado to everything he did. We've seen how his creations for stars like Crawford and Garbo sparked real-world trends, how his wartime designs empowered American women, and how his legacy continues to echo in fashion today. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the life of Gilbert Adrian, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Comment below with your thoughts, or let us know which fashion icon you'd like us to cover next. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious and inspired. This has been the Fashion Memoir.